Alien continents inside Earth, LLSVPs. When we think of aliens, we usually think about space. However, geophysicists have discovered an anomaly suggesting that pieces of an alien world might be buried deep beneath our feet. Using seismic waves from earthquakes to map the inside of our planet, scientists discovered two colossal, unimaginable structures sitting deep within the Earth's mantle, right on top of the molten core. They are called Large Low Shear Velocity Provinces, or LLSVPs. They're also known as simply the blobs. One is located deep beneath Africa, and the other is under the Pacific Ocean. To understand their size, imagine a continent sinking into the Earth, but roughly 100 times taller than Mount Everest. The anomaly is that these blobs are completely different from the surrounding rock. They are much denser and have a different chemical signature. The craziest theory is that these are the fossilized remains of Theia, a Mars-ized protolunate that crashed into Earth 4.5 billion years ago. While the debris from that collision formed our moon, the rest of the alien planet may have sunk into our own, where it remains today. The ghost species in our DNA. For decades, the story of human evolution seemed relatively straightforward. Homo sapiens evolved in Africa and eventually migrated outward. However, recent computational biology has revealed a massive, disturbing gap in our own genetic code. When scientists analyzed the genomes of some modern populations, they found segments of DNA that simply do not belong to any known human ancestor. They belong to a sort of ghost hominin, a completely unknown species of ancient human. According to the data, this mysterious lineage diverged from our family tree roughly 360,000 to 1.02 million years ago, but suddenly interbred with our ancestors between 6,000 and 124,000 years ago. In some populations today, up to 19% of their genetic ancestry traces back to this ghost species. The most disturbing part is that we have absolutely zero physical evidence of them. No skulls, no tools, no cave paintings. We have no idea what they looked like, how intelligent they were, or what eventually wiped them out. The living statue pandemic. Between 1916 and the 1930s, a terrifying and completely unexplained epidemic swept the globe, infecting roughly 1 million people. The disease attacked the brain, leaving victims in a state of statue-like motionlessness. They were completely conscious and aware of their surroundings, but they were trapped inside their own bodies, unable to speak, move, or sometimes even blink. Many died, more than 500,000 people. But thousands of survivors were left institutionalized, locked in frozen states for decades. Then in the 1930s, the disease simply vanished. It was called encephalitis lethargica, or the sleepy sickness. The disturbing anomaly is that to this day, modern medicine has absolutely no idea what caused it. Biologists and neurologists have studied preserved brain tissue from victims using modern technology, but they have never found a virus, a bacterium, or an environmental toxin to blame. Some theorize it was a bizarre autoimmune response triggered by a previous common infection, but there is no official consensus. We do not know for sure where the disease came from, how it spread, why it disappeared, or most terrifyingly, if it could suddenly wake up and happen again. Life, death, and the third state. Throughout human history, biology has treated life as binary. Something is either alive or dead. However, in late 2024, biologists published a massive review proposing a terrifying and fascinating third state of existence. Scientists have discovered that when certain organisms die, their cells don't simply power down and decay. Under the right conditions, cells extracted from a deceased organism can spontaneously reorganize themselves into entirely new, functional, multicellular life forms. What makes this an anomaly is that these new biological structures develop behaviors and capabilities they never possessed when the original organism was alive. For example, skin cells taken from dead frog embryos have been observed reassembling into microscopic xenobots that use tiny hairs to navigate their environment and push materials around. Similarly, Human cells have reorganized into anthrobots that can move and even repair damaged tissue placed near them. In the third state, death seems to act as a trigger for cells to communicate, rewrite their own rules, and build a completely new life form. Scientists still do not fully understand the bioelectric signals that instruct dead cells to do this, meaning we might have to completely rewrite our definition of what death actually is. The Tully monster? In 1958, a fossil collector named Francis Tully found a 300-million-year-old creature in the Mason Creek fossil beds of Illinois. It was dubbed the Tully monster, and to this day, evolutionary biologists have absolutely no idea what it is. It's basically a biological glitch. The creature looks like it was assembled in the dark from spare parts. It had a soft, torpedo-shaped body, fins like a squid, and two eyes that stuck out of its body on rigid stalks. Strangest of all, it had a long, stiff appendage ending in a toothy claw-like mouth extending from where its face should be. Usually, when paleontologists find a strange fossil, they can at least identify its film, the broad category it belongs to, such as arthropods, which include spiders and crabs. This isn't the case for the Tully monster. In 2016, a major study declared it was a vertebrate related to jawless fish like lamprey. Then just a year later, another team of scientists completely debunked that, proving it couldn't possibly be a vertebrate. Despite having over 1,000 perfectly preserved fossil specimens, modern science cannot agree with certainty on what this animal is, what it evolved from, or how it relates to anything else on Earth. The biological time traveler. Biology has a universal rule. The arrow of time moves forward. You are born, you age, and eventually you die. However, floating in the Earth's oceans is a tiny bell-shaped creature that has basically figured out how to respawn. It is the Turritopsis dohrnii, famously known as the immortal jellyfish. When a normal animal gets old, sick, or faces starvation, it dies. When this specific jellyfish faces severe stress, physical injury, or old age, it does something incredible. It absorbs its own tentacles, sinks to the ocean floor, and shrinks back into a blob of tissue. From there, its cells undergo a rare process called transiffiation. A muscle cell can change its gene expression to become a nerve cell or a sperm cell, etc. The jellyfish completely rebuilds itself and reverts back to its infant stage called a polyp. It literally ages backward into a baby and then starts its life over again. Genetically, it is the exact same individual, and it can do this over and over again. Theoretically, forever. It is the only known animal on Earth capable of completely reversing its life cycle. Biologists are studying it intensely to understand how it commands its own cells to do all of this. But the exact genetic trigger for this biological time travel remains a mystery. The space roar. When we think of outer space, we usually think of a silent vacuum. However, in 2006, NASA launched a balloon instrument called Arcade into the upper atmosphere to measure the faint ambient heat of the universe left over from the Big Bang. Instead of a quiet background, the instrument was hit with a deafening blast of radio static. Scientists call it the space roar. It is a background cosmic radio signal that is 6 times louder than the combined radio emissions of all the known galaxies, stars, and radio sources in the entire universe. To this day, astrophysicists have absolutely no idea what is causing it. It doesn't match the signature of primordial black holes. It doesn't align with the distribution of known galaxies, and it is too loud to be caused by any known atmospheric or cosmic dust. The star in a jar. This is an anomaly that happens right here on Earth in laboratories. In a phenomenon known as sonoluminescence, scientists can fire high-frequency sound waves through a flask of liquid, causing a tiny bubble of gas to form and then rapidly collapse. When the bubble collapses, something crazy happens. It emits a brief, intense flash of blue light, and the temperature inside the collapsing bubble spikes to around 20,000 degrees Kelvin. That is more than 3 times hotter than the surface of the sun, for a fraction of a second. Sound creates a microscopic sun-like inferno in a jar of water. Despite decades of study, physicists still do not have a unified, agreed-upon explanation for why this happens. Some theories suggest the collapsing gas creates a localized plasma state, but it still remains a baffling mystery: the Aerodanis supervoid. When mapping the leftover heat from the Big Bang, astronomers found a massive region in the constellation Aerodanis that is unnaturally cold. It spans hundreds of millions of light years across, making it one of the largest known structures in the universe. According to the standard model of cosmology, temperature fluctuations in the early universe should be relatively uniform. A cold spot this massive and deep is weird. While most scientists believe it's just an incredibly rare, massive illusion caused by an alignment of empty spaces, others have proposed a much more disturbing theory. Cosmologists like Laura Mersini-Shton have suggested that the cold spot is a cosmic bruise, the physical scar left over from the very moment of the Big Bang, when our newly forming universe violently collided with a neighboring parallel universe. If true, it would be the first evidence that we are living in a multiverse. Terminal lucidity. This is arguably one of the most chilling anomalies in modern medicine. Terminal lucidity is a documented medical phenomenon where